This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. In this episode, I speak with live music producer Tom Jackson. We have a packed episode. We talk about how you need to look at your show from your audience's perspective, developing themes and characters in your live show, the idea of dating your audience, and why confidence, authority, and charisma is so important if you're going to deliver a great live show. Enjoy the episode. Hey, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have Tom Jackson. Tom has a passion for helping artists develop their onstage skills and produce unique shows. Through onstage rehearsals, he teaches artists and bands to find the unique moments in their music, to capture and engage their audiences and build fans for life. Artists he has worked with include Taylor Swift, the band Perry, Ladies of the Canyon, and many, many more. And it's my delight to have him on the show today. Welcome to the show, Tom.
It's great to be here.
So share with our listeners what's going on in your world just now.
I'm just getting up. That's what's going on. Wow. I think the biggest thing, and it's been this way actually for 20 years, so nothing has changed, is we have so much stuff going on. It's figuring out what is the priority to do. The thing that I really don't talk about a lot is another thing that I do is I work with charities that help artists with tour support. So at this moment, I'm trying to get a few tours hooked up with these charities where they'll get some kids help, the artist makes some money, and everybody wins. But in terms of working with artists, the truth is, in my career, I'm making some transitions. I'm going more, trying to move more into education. I think one of the things that is lacking massively in the music industry is people being good on stage. They don't know what they're doing. They're making it up as they go. So I have developed a curriculum, a method that I am currently working on really developing to get out there. In the meantime, I'm working. I just came back from Australia, did 18 days there, working with some bands, taught a workshop, went to the WOMAD Festival, which was awesome. And then I'm off for vacation for a couple of weeks, and then come back and work with an up-and-coming pop band called Tryon.
And so how did you first get involved in this whole area of helping artists kind of develop their onstage skills and help them put on better shows, essentially?
Well, years ago, I played in a band. I'm going to try to make this short. And we couldn't find a lead singer if our life depended on it. And so we went into this company, and it's going to sound kind of cheesy, but it really was an eye-opener to me, that did assembly shows in this country. And we're playing about 500,000 people a year and doing concerts. And there were some basic entertainment skills that were taught, and it opened my eyes to, wow, there's more than just playing the songs, getting them tight, and just kind of what people would say being spontaneous on side. What I learned is that they're not being spontaneous, they're actually winging it. And then I had a few aha moments that really opened my eyes. I remember one time we were on tour. We're playing some football out in the American football out in the field before the gig, and our drummer hurt his arm, and he only had one arm to play with, but we couldn't get anybody in, so he played with one arm, and we were terrible musically. You know, he was not a very good drummer with two arms. Just kidding. But we were just terrible. I'm standing on stage in the first song, sweating bullets, thinking they're going to hate us because we're so, our time's all over the place. It was terrible. We got a standing O. And I realized It was one of the first aha moments that I looked at the show from the audience's perspective, not the musician's perspective. And I started looking with those eyes as the rest of the tour went on. And so it opened my eyes. 3, 4, 5 years later, I quit playing. Well, it's not that I quit playing. I decided to move into this because I enjoyed it and I could help bands. So I just started talking to bands and started putting together a little curriculum, started teaching at music conferences, and got an unbelievable response because no one was teaching it. And as they say, the rest is history. I just kept on getting hired. This is before the internet exploded. It was actually before the internet. I hate to say it.
And obviously, so many people they might go to music college. They'll go and do their couple of years at music college. But it seems to be that the performance skills part is never taught on those music college. There's taught maybe in the theatre if you go and do a theatre degree or drama degree or something, but in the music side it's never taught. Have you seen that? Is it changing, or are people still just the academics closed blinkers to this?
Well, it's not that they just close blinkers, but you're absolutely true, 100% true. I got in trouble for saying this, but I've already got in trouble, so I'll say it again. I was teaching at Berklee College of Music. I was doing some weekend workshops every once in a while. I think I did 2. And as I was walking with one of the main guys, he said, which is amazing here is we teach them how composition, we teach them history of music, we teach them writing, we teach them vocalization, all the stuff you're saying. But we don't teach them how to make a living, which is going out on stage and bringing the goods. He says, we desperately need what you have. And I mentioned that at a conference and got in trouble. But it's absolutely true. And no, I haven't seen academia change at all. And let me tell you why, and this is going to sound arrogant. The reason they don't teach it is because they don't know it. Because it's not drama. It's not dance. It's not choreography. It's none of those. But they don't teach it because, I'll go college after college after college. And my son's in college, and in the music program I see they don't same old. So I don't know when it's going to change, whether it's the red tape and lack of knowledge, but I know it's lack of knowledge because I'll talk to the music professors and they don't have a clue.
And when you first start working with a band or an artist, maybe that they've gone to music college and they've come out and they're starting to play some shows, but they realize that they have to get their performance side together. And you come in and you start working with them. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see them making when you have that first kind of consultation or that first visit?
Well, the first thing is, there's multiple mistakes artists make. And they're common with most artists. One is, first of all, in this town particularly, it's where in Nashville here, it's all about the song. So you've got artists here, and that culture, I don't care what genre it is, that culture permeates it in some degree because there's a lot of co-writing going on. And I have no problem with hit songs. I've been fortunate enough to work on probably over 100 number one songs in different genres. So I'm all about the song when it comes to radio. But live, that changes. So one of the biggest mistakes is artists play the song the way they record it. Big mistake. I use the example of, it's a 3.5 minute thing with, intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And for me, the equivalent of that, like on TV, would be a sitcom. I don't know if you guys have The Simpsons over there.
Yeah.
But it's a 30-minute sitcom. But in reality, it's 22 minutes and 8 minutes of commercials. So, and that's fine because it's made for TV, just like a hit song is made for radio. But when The Simpsons did a movie 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have walked into a theater and they would have played 2 or 3 sitcoms back to back to back, paid your $10, $12, $15, you'd have felt ripped off. Why? Because you can see that at home. So it's the same thing with a live show. the question is, so it's a different experience. So what you have to do, just as the Simpsons did, you have to develop themes and characters out of your song to create moments instead of just play songs and hope something good happens. Jump around the stage or do whatever you do and hope something good happens. So the first thing is the rearrangement of the songs. People, the biggest mistake is they don't create moments, they play songs. Second is after, in rehearsal, we find these moments inside the songs. The problem is the songs all sound the same because they look the same. Now, to a musician who we're talking to, they're incredulous. Are you kidding? A guitar player, I'm changing from a Les Paul to a Strat. I'm using wah on this. I'm doing this. Drummer's going, no, man, I'm doing 3/4 time. I'm doing 4/4 time on this one. Vocalist, no, this song's, or lyric writers about, this one's about my relationship with my girlfriend. This one's about, angst. And they think, no, they're all different. The problem is because they all look the same, they all start sounding the same because we communicate from the stage. 55% of communication is what they see with their eyes. If they see the same thing over and over every song to somebody who doesn't know you. I have a saying, are you dating your audience or are you married to your audience? And that makes a difference how you approach your audience. But most people, let's face it, how many stars are there in the world? So most people I'm talking to are indie artists who are dating their audience. They're trying to develop fans from their live show. And if their songs look the same, they start sounding the same. Those are two things, not rearranging your songs to create moments and your songs looking the same so they sound the same. Those are two things that I immediately address.
And what about in terms of pacing? So if you go to the theatre and you go and see a play, many of them, they'll use almost like 3 acts. They'll do intro, act 1, act 2, act 3, outro. How, when it comes to a live show, how do you ensure that the pacing works so that you keep those people engaged? And you mentioned like themes there. So is that part of that?
Well, the truth is, I don't really mean this, but I'm going to say it. I think pacing sometimes can be overrated. And what I mean by that, it's not true, but let me say this. People jump immediately to pacing. And instead, I want to jump into creating moments. There are songs that if I didn't change the arrangement of the song, I would put it second in the show. But once I get in there and we find some cool rhythmic thing or some vocal thing or something that, like I said, a theme that could be developed, a musical theme that could be developed into a moment, all of a sudden this thing that was second because it was a 3.5-minute song is now dropped later into this set because it's an extraordinary moment and you don't want to give it away early. So people want to jump right into pacing, but you've got to develop, in a sense, the script before you jump into the pacing. But the pacing is important. I'm not going to pretend. The way, for example, it's like going into a restaurant. Your audience has expectations, and they expect certain things at certain times. You walk into a restaurant, you expect someone to greet you. If they don't greet you, you look for a sign that says, please seat yourself or wait to be seated. Then you sit down, you expect someone to come up in a timely manner and say, would you like some water or what would you like to drink? And then you have certain expectations about size of portion. So pacing is important because here's a silly example in a restaurant. Though you walk in and the person walks up to you and says, hi, what would you like for dessert? Well, that would be stupid. So pacing is important because you want dessert, but you want to put that at the right time. But again, I don't want to say it's overrated. I made that statement to make a point. You've got to develop the moments. Then now you know what you have. Then you can put your songs in the right order.
We've had a lot of people on the show, guests on the show, who have had a lot of success as speakers at TED Talks, millions and millions of views of their TED Talks. And what you were just talking about creating these magic moments, these moments that people are going to remember and something to say, and also you're talking about themes as well. It sounds there's some similarities when you see great public speakers as well, when they're
Totally.
in terms of that performance technique as well. And it seems to be, if it's done well, you don't even notice that there's technique going on there. It just feels like this is a great person telling some really interesting stories.
Correct. You got to. How do you introduce yourself? I actually have a whole rating system because that's how important I think pacing is. I'm kind of a paradox here, but I have a whole rating system on a scale of 1 to 5. I rate my songs. And then I look at the psychology of an audience again. Am I dating? Am I married? When most artists come out, Taylor Swift comes out, plays her first song, 17,000 people jump to their feet and start singing along. Working with a young guy named Shawn Mendes, exact same thing. You come out, Mr. Independent Artist, they don't know your music, and all that they do is crick their neck a little bit and try to decide whether they like you or not. And so you've got to put your best foot forward. So I have like this thing where it's got to be a 3.5. It's got to be short. Song easy, move to. It's got to have a trash can ending. Certain psychological things so that you can create freedom in the room and start winning those people over. Versus, I've seen way too many indie artists pretentiously, start something like it's Pink Floyd or U2 or something, and I'm sitting out there in the audience going, this is goofy. I don't even know who these people are. They think it's arrogant. So you've got to approach the psychology of a set list is huge.
And what impact does I was watching something the other day, it was David Byrne. He was talking about how the room that you're playing to, or the space that you're playing to, influences the song that the way the kinds of songs that you're going to write. So, you have more mid-tempo ballads, work better in stadiums where, jazz is often best experienced in smaller kind of clubs. So if you're going to want to listen to Mozart, square or rectangular rooms with high ceilings, or choral music with big high ceilings. When it comes to the performance side of things, what does the actual space make a difference? And how does an artist that's maybe going from playing, maybe regular sized venues that they have to then go to that next stage and play slightly bigger venues, do they have to change their performance to compensate for this new kind of venue that they're in?
The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense of some energy, maybe a little bit. Verbally, yes. If you're playing a huge venue, you have to definitely have more energy, and you can't necessarily chat so much as you could in a club. See, here's the deal. The beautiful part about my method is I will create a moment in a song, or we'll create a moment really the ultimate is when you walk into rehearsal, and the moment is created by everybody. In other words, I'll lead it, but I'll lead them to the moment, lead them to the idea, and then let the ideas float around there. I'll intentionally, even though it takes longer, let stuff float around the room so that somebody in the band or the artist can grab that idea. It's almost like it is floating around. Grab that idea and make it their own. Because if I say it, okay, it's a good idea, I like doing this. But if they find the idea, they're like, oh man, this is awesome. It's like writing a song. You're more emotionally connected to the song. But when it comes to different size rooms, here's what I do. In rehearsal, we create these moments, but we leave room for spontaneity. To me, a great show is a combination of form and spontaneity. And so what we have is certain things that are just what they are. It's like a song. You're not going to completely change the verse over to put the chorus where the verse is. And I mean, that would be silly. So what you want to do is leave space for a bigger venue. I would leave more space and be more spontaneous if the person is spontaneous. Let me put it that way, because a lot of people think they're spontaneous and they're really not. They'd like to be, but
and what about those maybe the people that are listening just now who are just starting on that journey in terms of playing live, and they're nervous about kind of getting up there and performing their songs and performing what they've been working on? Is there any advice that you give to help the artist with their, pre-show nerves or just feeling comfortable on stage?
Yeah. In fact, I have a whole teaching on confidence, authority, and charisma. Confidence, first of all, you want to be prepared. Absolutely prepared. This, to me, it's a bunch of crap. Unless you're just some freaking genius, can do anything at any time. And those are one in a million. It's like in comedy, Robin Williams. He was a genius and he was really spontaneous. Though, if you've ever watched Robin Williams, there are times because he was so spontaneous and he had no form, he died. That's a terrible thing to say. But he didn't go over well because he just wasn't on that night. It was random. It was funny, kinda, but when he was on, he was genius. But to me, confidence comes from preparation. We go into rehearsal, we knock it out, and we do repetition. No one likes to hear this, not no one, but a lot of people don't, because, again, we want to be spontaneous. We're artists. I make it up as I go. What a bunch of crap most of the time. Make it up when you're writing the song. Make it up in rehearsal as we're working it out. Those are the times to be spontaneous. But we create this, we have this form, we work it out in rehearsal. And then we leave spaces, whether it's solos, whether it's build-ups, whether it's what I call landing on the one and hanging out there for a while. But the point is we rehearse it. Because people, when they go see a show, one of the things that people rebel against when they find out what I do, and they're like, no, man, we don't want to have a canned show. So we can't plan. Well, the truth is most canned shows are not rehearsed enough. Because you see people standing on stage, and I'm not talking about Disney acts. I'm talking about, nothing against Disney acts for 8 to 12-year-olds, but I'm talking about artists. Yeah. And you can see them, if we've just worked and they haven't worked enough, they're thinking on stage and it looks canned. Well, if they would have just like playing your guitar, you got to go over that scale over and over and over and over so that it becomes a part of you. And when you first started learning to play the guitar, you're just happy to put your hands on the strings, get them in the right place. You didn't even think guitar tone. Then to start thinking, wow, this guitar sounds like crap. You better get a new one. And then you start learning, playing some scales. And for the first time you played a solo, you were completely thinking about the solo. You weren't thinking about performing. You weren't thinking about anything. But after you played it, how many times, and everyone's a little different, but multiple times, you start feeling that solo, and then you start feeling that solo, you start realizing tonally, wow, you start developing your own style tonally, you start developing your own style visually. It's what I call just visual style. And Joe Cocker had his visual style. And if you do it regularly and own it, then it doesn't look canned anymore. But at first, you've got to get comfortable, just like playing your instrument. Then out of that, built on top of confidence, comes authority. Authority is, the Bonos of the world, where people go, oh, something's different about this guy. Authority is where you actually learn to lead your audience instead of just play off your audience. Most people, well, I'll get the energy back from the audience. Well, of course you do. But what you want to do is lead them. You have destinations planned in your show, certain moments, fun moments, musical moments, touching moments, audience participation, whatever kind of music you do, just moments and spontaneous moments, because that spontaneous place is there and it would be different every night. But that authority comes from, in my opinion, a belief system inside you. I have this saying that, before the world was formed, you were created to stand on that stage. No one else is on that stage. I don't care if you're in front of 3 people or 30,000. I used to tell Taylor that all the time, even when she was 17 years old. And that's a belief system, because your confidence, everyone's starting out. Even not just starting out. I've got artists that are veterans that still are scared to death to walk out on stage. And you've got to wrestle with yourself. So what does it take? Certain music to get yourself prepared, certain thing that you do over and over again to get yourself prepared. So when you hit that stage, you're rocking. And what you're trying to do is lead them and create freedom in the room. You've heard the saying, I'm sure you have over there, going to a U2 show or a Springsteen show or something like it was a religious experience. Well, what it is there's so much freedom in the room, and now you're jumping into a little bit different world, but the music is transcended by what's happening in the room. It's what I call a spiritual moment. And you create this freedom, and then on top of that authority comes charisma. And charisma, a lot of people say you can't teach charisma. And I thought, first 10 years I started doing this, I thought, yeah, you're right. We just do all this stuff. And then I started thinking, well, what is charisma? It's spirit. So if you create room so the spirit can move in the room, and it's this, we've all experienced it at festivals and different things. All of a sudden, these artists are raised up to where charisma is a normal part of their show. And now it's undeniable that they're stars. It's huge. So I go confidence, authority, charisma. And yes, I work on those things with an artist.
And I remember reading something that you wrote or you spoke about a while ago called High Tech, High Touch, which I love because it seems obviously in the place that the year that we live in now, where we have all of those that technology around us, and it's amazing what we can do, but people want those transcendent live experiences where people are together in a group and something takes the room. The artist or the person in front is able to take them to another place, and you feel as you leave that it's a transcendent experience. You're a different person leaving that place as when you kind of come into it. So
that's it.
Are you feeling now that we've gone through a time where so many artists are now having to go on the road because of the way that the music industry, the record industry has changed, that they are now finally saying, okay, I need to actually invest in not just doing a bog standard kind of show, but actually really investing in the kind of performance that I get so I can create those transcendent experiences for my audiences?
Well, yes and no. If you ask me about the majority, the answer is no. In this town, and Nashville is no longer just country music at all. It is all across the board. But I'll just pick on this industry. They put shows together, and a lot of the time they're just goofy. They go out and do the guitar thing together, and I mean it's just goofy. But you asked me earlier. One of the very first questions was, I'm going to get to the answer to this. What are the biggest mistakes? Well, one of the biggest mistakes, here's the third, and this is really, really hard to teach an artist, is to get outside your body. See, the dilemma with what we're talking about is this transcendent experience, this feeling, this awesomeness that happens in the room. The problem regularly is that the artist does experience that. It's just that the audience doesn't. But the artist is deceived in thinking everyone's killing it because he's feeling it. It's him on stage. This indie artist, major artist, doesn't matter. They're on stage. It's their music. People are looking at them. They're clapping at them. There's some girl in the third row, waving at, the bass player. And he's thinking, this is awesome. My adrenaline's pumping. This is a moment for the artist. The problem is it's not a moment for the audience. Now, again, well, then why are people clapping? Well, usually in the front, there's some fans, whether it's family or whatever. There's people that are clapping, they're into it. But I'm not talking about 20% of the people or 30% of the people. I'm talking about capturing and engaging an entire audience. That's when it becomes transcendent, not just the first 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, 10 rows. It becomes a magical thing for the audience, not the artist. And that's one of the biggest mistakes, because the artist thinks this is awesome. And then, I'm going to say it, you've got, and I say it in my book, I'll tell a story. A few years ago, I'm in Florida working with an artist. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm driving home. I don't know what time it was. It might have been midnight. Driving home back to the hotel, and I get this desperate call saying, oh my gosh, I'm not going to say name, just went on Saturday Night Live and bombed. Completely bombed. It was horrible. It's 1,000 to 1 on social network that it was the worst thing they've ever seen. Can you come out here tomorrow because the tour starts in X? Well, the truth was I couldn't. I said I could get there 3-4 days. So he said, okay, well, let me get you the manager's name and you guys can touch base. Well, I got a hold of the manager and said, I can't be there for a couple of days. He goes, great, just let me know. So a couple of days later, I texted him and said, listen, I can make it out now. What do you want to do? He goes, don't worry about it. Me and the president of the record label worked on the show. We got it covered. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, great. Well, then I'll tell you what. Let me go run the record company or go manage the artist. One of the biggest things is in this industry is you've got people that, this is going to sound arrogant, but it really is the truth. You've got people that don't know what they're doing working on the show, managers, record label guys, A&R guys. Now, can they make it better? Sure, a little bit, but can they create moments that just what we talked about are transcendent? Can they teach people how to capture and engage an audience, create moments and change their lives? No. And so when you ask the question, are people realizing it? The answer is a few. But most people think they're already awesome. And then if people, I've sat in on some of those meetings and you've got the A&R guy going, here's what we're watching video. And they'll go, you need to smile more there. And I'm thinking, that's it? You major in the minors is what I'm talking about. Smile, you got to move there, do something there. And what the song needed was a rearrangement. But because of ignorance, just like me going into the studio, I'll go into these rehearsal halls, and it regularly happens where a manager or an artist, after rearranging the song, goes, oh my gosh, I like this more than the record. Will you produce my next record? And for about 30 seconds, I'm in this little afterglow ego thing. And then I come to my senses and I tell them, I say, listen, I'd be glad to produce your record. If your goal is a mediocre record that's really expensive, I'm your guy. Because it's not my world. So when you've got a producer from the studio go and work with an artist, I can watch the show and I can tell in a second. Because they don't understand, it's not their world.
And you mentioned obviously working with people like Taylor Swift. Of the artists that you've either worked with kind of one-on-one or artists that you've just seen give performances, are there ones that really kind of stand out for you to say, this person has put together just, and there's some they are doing things both technically in terms of what they're doing, and also other times you're going, how are they doing that? Because you're, as a professional, knows this space, you're kind of thinking, wow, that's really interesting what they're doing, and you're kind of learning from the kind of performance that they're doing. Are there any of those kind of real highlight artists in your mind?
Well, let me say this, and as time goes on, I'm realizing this. I am more of a artist guy. In other words, I worked with Taylor on 2.5, 3 tours. When she was considered country pop, I guess. And one of my favorite times was when she was going to do a European tour. And the idea was because, and you guys know this more, in the U.S., you can set up the same thing every night, lights, sound, everything. Over there, because you got borders, you got all these different technology. Our whole thing was, let's make the show work on a Saturday afternoon with no lights, no technology, no stuff. And that's what I'm strong at. When you start getting into Madonna's show, Taylor's show now, I mean, it's a Broadway show on steroids. You know what I'm saying? It's technology and gags and stuff and choreography. And to be honest with you, when I do some choreography, I bring a choreographer in. but it's not my world. To me, I'm more of a musical producer. That's why I'm called a live music producer, where give me somebody who's playing guitar. Give me somebody who's got a band. Give me somebody who's doing something live instead of. And I love DJs. I'm going to confess. I love Tiesto and Armin van Buuren and some of the EDM things. But that show is all it is. All it is, and all it can be, is technology and things blowing up and gags and you know what I'm saying. Maybe you bring out a singer or two, but otherwise you're just standing there and it's about the song and the arrangement of the song and how they build it and develop it. So for me, I have to say I'm a little old school in the sense of give me some good music, give me some good players, give me some willing people. I'll use you too as an example. I think technology might be getting in the way of some of their passion. And also maybe age, because when they were young, it was so magical, and raw and real. That's what I love about Springsteen. Prince is great at what he does. And these are old school guys, but they've mastered it. But even them, some of them can get better.
And we were talking about technology.
Yeah.
Do you have any, as we start to finish up here, do you have any online resources or tools like Evernote that you're really into?
Define that. You mean, do I use some technological things?
No, you're old school when it comes to that.
I take a notepad into rehearsal. I get the music sent to me beforehand, and I listen to the songs, looking for the moments inside the songs. That's the very first thing I do.
So you don't take cameras into the shows, into rehearsals, and to film things.
Oh yeah. We'll take some camera in and watch it back, and particularly when I'm working with up and coming indies or somebody getting ready for a showcase and they can only afford a day or two, I have them film the rehearsal so that. And let them go do the repetition days later. Meaning we'll come up with the ideas, we'll come up with the structure of the song, the moment, we'll develop it. I'll make sure that they got the idea, we film it, and then we move on to the next song. Instead of going, now when I'm doing a longer tour, we'll go over it and over it and over it till we get it right. Where cost is not that big a factor. So me being fairly expensive. So yeah, mostly that, or an iPad works perfectly. Set it up when we're done. Finally got the final, in a sense. We set it up, and this is really good. I don't know if anyone does it there, but in this town it really works. This is really good for solo artists who put bands around them and hire different people. In other words, they might have two drummers that go out on a small tour with them. One time, one another time. So we record the arrangement the way you want the drummer to learn it, instead of give them a CD or a recorded thing, because then you're back to the recorded version for radio or for your CD. So what we do is we film the final version the way we've created these moments, the rearrangement, and then send that to the drummer to learn.
That's great. I mean, because I know when I've worked with a lot of artists and we've gone into new territories, and maybe where we don't take the whole band, we'll maybe take the lead singer and maybe the musical director. And often, even if they're playing to backing track, and you're bringing in a bunch of musicians to essentially mime to whatever the thing that you're playing as well, having that video to be able to show them, said this is these are the highs and lows. These are you talk about the moments within the song that we need to have. You need to bring something as well.
Well, one of the things that I do regularly, and I've done it with every artist, is we edit those backing tracks. We edit those, whether it's a sweetener or whether it's a full-on thing. We'll have somebody in there that has Pro Tools or something, and we will extend songs. So we'll stop in the middle of rehearsal and extend that song on the track, loop it, or extend the intro, or develop the bridge or the outro or a solo by looping stuff. And in some, sort of extreme cases, we'll go back in the studio and extend the song. And then you still have the backing track, but you've rearranged the song differently than the recorded version. Do that all the time.
And if you could only recommend one record and one book to our listeners, what would they be?
Oh, geez.
And
I can't.
And sometimes when people get stuck,
a book would be my book.
And what
I have a book. Teaches my method.
But we're going to put that on the show notes anyways. People go to jamestaylor.me and just type in Tom Jackson. We're going to have all your links. But is there a book that you've gifted more often, or is there a record that you've gifted more often to people?
Well, the truth is the book is the Bible. Mm-hmm. No question. I spend more time in it than any book. A record, I spend more time. I'm going old school. Well, this is a hard one because I'm just an old hippie, okay, in my head. I'm listening to Close to the Edge from Yes.
Oh, what many years ago with Steve Howe from Yes. Great band. Yep. Love this. And actually, I've seen them a couple of times live, and they do a great live show as well. Well, Let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning, Tom, and had to start from scratch. So all you have is the knowledge that you've acquired over these years, really understanding what it takes to put a great live show together, but you have no contacts, no one knows who you are, you have no brand. How would you restart things?
I think I would start with content. Really, the thing that really kickstarted my deal was a couple of music conferences. So I would pay to go to some of the music conferences. I'm teaching at Canadian Music Week in 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And it's one of the best. If anyone's on this side of the world or coming this way, it's one of the best music conferences in the world, I think. You've got everyone from just tons of people that go to it. And what I do is I put a band on stage. So what I would do is I would pay, if I had to, because if they don't know me, I'd say, listen, I'll pay to get in your conference, put a band on stage, and then I'd advertise the crap out of it at the conference because there's 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people there. Get 600-700 people in the room. Probably have free drinks to get more people in the room, and show them what I do. And that's how, in a long story short, that's sort of how it started. I paid to go my first conference, and it exploded.
And obviously now you've gone online as well. You've got a whole kind of the online side to what you do as well, which we're going to put in the show notes here as well, so people can check out. And so as we kind of start to finish up here as well, share with our listeners the best ways that they can connect with you. What's the best way that they can learn the kind of everything that you're doing and kind of take this journey to the next step?
Well, I think there's 3 ways. I mean, first of all, I'd love to come your way. I've just been contacted by Norway. Would love to stop in the UK and do a workshop sometime. But from online, I would order. There's three major products. One is my book. It's my live music book. It's 400 pages long. I go into depth on this stuff. 2, I've got a DVD set, 7 DVDs. With a few extra teachers. Des Dickerson, who played with Prince, is teaching a class. Vocal coach who coaches a ton of stuff. We did a class together. That's All Roads Lead to the Stage DVDs. And the third would be my online subscription, which is just $18 a month. And we put just content back there, blogs, videos, parts of me opening, working with an artist on just an intro, creating a moment with another part. So those 3 things are the things that I would poke my head in. I probably would start with a book because it's the most comprehensive. Because in a book, that's what I would do.
Great, and we'll put all these on the show notes, so as people to go to jamestaylor.me and just type in Tom Jackson, you'll be able to get the links to all of these as well. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the show and share the incredible work that you do at making more and more live shows even more incredible. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Tom.
It's been my pleasure.
Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.